While my wife drowned herself in alcohol, like always, I found myself spending the evening with her nephew. An experience so unexpected and strange. I'll never forget it. The night began like many others. The quiet hum of routine filled the house, broken only by the soft clink of ice in a glass and the low buzz of the television in the background. She had come home earlier than usual, flushed and laughing from an unplanned happy hour with friends. Her heels barely touched the floor before she was reaching for another drink. Her laughter faded into the familiar slurred murmurs that had become our soundtrack. I stood in the kitchen, clearing away dinner. The weight of routine pressed against me like always. That old ache settled deep in my stomach, the kind that came every time she disappeared into her haze. The clatter of dishes gave my hands something to do, but my mind wandered, too aware of the silence that followed her noise. A soft knock on the doorframe broke my focus. I turned and saw him, her nephew. He stood casually, but his gaze was sharp, watchful. Over the years, he had grown into himself. The awkwardness of youth replaced by something quieter, more grounded. He filled the room in a way that unsettled me. Felt like he saw something in me, something I didn't want to look at too closely. "Hey, everything okay?" His voice was low, careful. I nodded, setting a plate on the drying rack. "Yeah, just thinking." He glanced toward the living room, where his aunt had collapsed on the couch with another drink in hand. He sighed and stepped farther inside. "She's had a few, huh?" I exhaled and wiped my hands on a towel. "You know how she gets." He did. He'd seen it before. The way she drank too much, laughed too loudly, slurred her words just enough to make people uncomfortable. He knew how easily she disappeared into herself, unaware of everything around her. His jaw tightened briefly before he leaned against the counter. "You shouldn't have to deal with this alone," he said quietly. I tried to smile. "It's nothing I'm not used to." Something shifted in his expression, something that made my chest tighten. He didn't look away, and for a moment the space between us felt different, charged with something we weren't ready to name. Something quiet, something real. A loud laugh from the living room broke the silence. I cleared my throat and turned away. "I should check on her." He hesitated like he wanted to say more, but then he nodded. "Yeah, I'll be here if you need anything." I didn't reply, just offered a small, grateful smile and stepped into the living room. But I could still feel his eyes on me, warm and unspoken. The dim lighting didn't soften what I found. She was sprawled across the couch, her head tilted back, lips parted in uneven sleep. A half-full glass of wine rested untouched on the table, condensation pooling beneath it. She was out. Again. I stared at her for a long time. That dull ache in my chest returned. This was our life. Her drinks. My silence. A loop we were too tired to break. A soft sound behind me made me turn. He was back. Arms crossed. Expression unreadable. He glanced between me and her before shaking his head, a slow breath escaping his lips. "She's out," he said softly. I nodded. "Yeah, she usually is by this time." He studied me. His gaze stayed longer than it should have. "It's not fair," he said, barely a whisper. "The way she treats you." I gripped the counter. No one had ever said that out loud before. People offered sympathetic glances, made small talk, but no one ever named it. "You deserve better," he said, stepping closer. "You shouldn't have to spend your nights like this." I opened my mouth, but nothing came. What was I supposed to say? That I'd gotten used to it? That I'd convinced myself this was just life? His fingers brushed mine. The contact was light, tentative, but it sent something electric through me. I looked up, startled by the quiet intensity in his eyes. "Come sit with me," he said gently, his tone steady. I hesitated, then followed. Back in the kitchen, the air felt different. Heavy. Close. The warm glow of the light cast soft shadows across the room. In the distance, the TV murmured on. Her breathing was the only other sound. I sat. My fingers grazed the cool surface of the table, grounding me. He sat across from me, leaning in slightly. His forearms rested on the wood. His gaze didn't waver. It was like he could see past everything I'd tried so hard to bury. "You're not happy," he said. It wasn't a question. My hands folded in my lap. "It's complicated." He shook his head. "No, it's not. She doesn't see you. She doesn't appreciate you." Something in me cracked. Not from his words, but the way he said them. The way he looked at me like I was something worth noticing, worth staying for. I looked away, blinking hard. But he didn't let the silence grow cold. His fingers reached across the table again. They closed gently over mine, his touch soft and steady. "You're allowed to want more," he whispered, his thumb moving slowly against my skin. I swallowed, my chest tight. This was dangerous. I knew it, but I didn't care. I just wanted to feel again. My voice came out barely audible. "This isn't." I paused. "We can't." He didn't pull away, didn't push. He just stayed. "Tell me to stop," he said softly. "And I will." I should've, could've, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, my fingers curled slightly against his, answering him before my mind caught up. My pulse pounded. He watched me, waiting, not demanding, just present. "You don't have to do this," he said. "But I think you want to." His words sent a shiver down my spine, because he wasn't wrong, and that terrified me. I pulled away slightly, not enough to break the moment, just enough to make him pause. He leaned in just a fraction. His warmth hovered close. "I don't know what I'm doing," I whispered. He exhaled. "Maybe it's not about knowing," he said. "Maybe it's just about feeling." His words landed hard. For so long I'd been numb, walking through each day like I didn't matter. But now I felt something. I closed my eyes. The silence stretched. Her muffled voice from the other room was a faint reminder of everything I was about to let go of. And yet, when I opened my eyes, he was still there, still offering, still waiting. And I realized I had already crossed that line. Slowly, I let my fingers return to his, accepting what was being offered. Not demanding, not certain, just real. He leaned closer, his presence wrapping around me like a quiet warmth. And for the first time in years, I let myself fall into it. The silence between us was thick, humming with things we didn't say. "You don't have to pretend anymore," he murmured. "Not with me." I exhaled, my heart pounding. "I'm not pretending," I whispered, though I wasn't sure if I believed it. His thumb traced circles again. "I see the way you look at me," he said, "like you're scared to feel anything at all. But you do, don't you?" I swallowed hard. "It doesn't matter." "It does," he replied. "You deserve to be happy." I opened my mouth. Nothing came out. How do you explain a lifetime of settling? He saw it. All of it. I pulled my hand back, heart hammering, palms trembling in my lap. "We can't," I whispered. "It's wrong." His expression shifted. Something unreadable flickered in his eyes. Maybe disappointment. Maybe understanding. Maybe both. He held my gaze, leaning back slightly. But he didn't waver. "I don't think it is," he said. "Not when it feels like this." I stood abruptly. I needed distance. The chair scraped against the floor as I stepped away, crossing my arms tightly across my chest. "This isn't a choice," I said, shaking my head. "I'm married. You're her nephew." I paused, struggling to find the words. "There's no way this," I motioned vaguely between us, "this moment between us could ever mean anything." He was quiet for a long time, just watching me. Then finally he nodded. "If that's what you really believe," he said, voice calm, "then I'll drop it. I won't say another word." He hesitated. "But if even part of you is unsure, don't lie to yourself." I turned away, gripping the edge of the counter, my breath coming in short, uneven bursts. I wanted to tell him he was wrong, that he'd imagined everything, that I felt nothing, but I couldn't, because deep down I knew none of that would be true. His chair scraped softly against the floor. I heard the gentle rhythm of his steps as he moved closer. My shoulders tensed as he stopped just behind me, close enough for me to feel the warmth radiating off him. "If you want me to leave," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Just say the word. My fingers curled tighter against the counter's edge. The silence between us stretched, thick, heavy, waiting. Still, I said nothing. I felt the lightest brush of his fingers along my arm. It was barely a touch, but it sent a shiver through me. He paused, giving me space to pull away. I didn't. He exhaled, quietly, and let his hand drift lower, his fingertips gently grazing mine where they clung to the counter. It wasn't forceful. It wasn't demanding. It was just there, an offering. I turned slightly, breath catching in my throat. His eyes met mine, dark and unreadable but open, honest. There was no pressure.
No expectación.
Just presence. A sound from the living room startled me. My wife shifted, murmuring incoherently in her sleep. Reality snapped back like a jolt. I yanked my hand away and stepped back fast, nearly stumbling. We can't do this, I said. My voice came out sharp, more to myself than to him. This is insane. I don't know what I was thinking. He ran a hand through his hair and nodded slowly. I understand. But the way his jaw clenched, the way his eyes lingered on mine, this wasn't over. No, not really. And as I turned and left the kitchen, retreating down the hallway toward my room, I knew it. No matter how hard I tried to fight it, something between us had shifted, irreversibly. I closed the bedroom door behind me and leaned against it, exhaling shakily. My hands were trembling. My skin still burned from where he had touched me. I pressed my fingers to my temples, trying to think clearly, trying to quiet the storm inside. But the silence didn't help. It was deafening. His voice still echoed in my mind. You don't have to pretend anymore. Not with me. I squeezed my eyes shut, but that didn't help either. I didn't just hear him. I felt him. The warmth of his nearness. The way he looked at me like I mattered. The way his fingers lingered against mine, like he wasn't ready to let go. A soft creak broke the stillness. Footsteps, slow, careful, approached from down the hall. My heart climbed into my throat. I didn't move. Seconds passed. Then, from the other side of the door, his voice came again. You don't have to pretend anymore, he said. His voice barely carried through the wood. But I felt every word. Not with me. I let out a slow breath, my hand tightening on the doorknob. I knew I should tell him to leave, but I didn't. He stepped closer, his voice softer now. Uncle James. The way he said my name, cautious, gentle, was enough to undo something inside me. You don't have to pretend with me. I swallowed, my throat dry. From the living room, I could still hear the distant sound of my wife shifting, still tethered to that world, but not enough to stop the way my pulse surged. This is a bad idea, I whispered. Then tell me to go, he replied. I'll listen. He wasn't pushing. He was just there, waiting. I parted my lips, but no words came. He stepped closer. You don't have to say anything, he said, his voice steady. I just want to be here, with you. I exhaled, slowly. Felt wrong. It should have felt wrong. But in the stillness of the night, in this space where everything felt muted and heavy, I couldn't push him away. He lifted his hand again, slower this time. Question, not a gesture. When I didn't stop him, his fingers found mine once more. His touch was light, deliberate, an invitation. My breath shallowed. I looked up at him. His eyes held mine, curious, but steady. Something deeper shimmered behind them. The television still buzzed in the background. My wife's breathing was soft, distant. Come sit, he said, nodding toward the couch in the small den off the kitchen. I paused, then followed. The cushions dipped beneath us as we sat. The soft light bathed his face, casting gentle shadows over the angles of his jaw, the curve of his brow. He turned slightly, facing me. I don't like seeing you like this, he said. Like you're just surviving. I exhaled, shaking my head. It's not that simple. Maybe it is, he said quietly. You deserve more than this. I met his gaze, searching for something solid, something clear. But all I found was the truth I'd been avoiding for far too long. He reached up slowly, his fingers brushing the side of my face. The touch was careful, so soft, yet it sent a tremor through me. He didn't push. His hand lingered, grazing along my jaw, then down, tracing the curve of my neck. I should have pulled away, but I didn't. I leaned into it just a little, just enough. He let out a breath, almost surprised. His hand slid beneath my chin, tilting my face toward him. "Uncle James," he whispered again, his breath warm against mine. I inhaled, shaky. My hands clenched the cushion beside me like an anchor. "This is..." But the words dissolved. He leaned forward, brushing his lips gently against mine. Just a breath, a pause, barely a kiss. But it was enough to make my entire body go still. He pulled back, giving me the choice. And I made it. I leaned in again. This time, there was no hesitation. The kiss deepened, not hurried, not wild, just full of something that had been held back for far too long. A sigh escaped me as his fingers slid into my hair. His other hand rested gently at my side. The television hummed. My wife's soft, steady breathing continued in the background. But it all felt distant. In that moment, it was just us. He shifted closer, guiding me into him. My body leaned into his as if we'd always fit like this. My hands found the rough stubble of his jaw, then moved to the back of his neck. It had been so long since I'd felt like this, wanted, noticed, held. His lips brushed along my jaw, down to the base of my neck. My breath caught. Everything inside me warred between guilt and longing. And still, I didn't pull away. I let it happen. Because right now, it wasn't about choices. It was about being seen. About being known. The night stretched on, full of quiet closeness and things neither of us dared say aloud. And as we sat there, hearts pounding, the house asleep around us, I knew we'd crossed a line. And I also knew I didn't want to go back. We were just standing there, staring at each other in the dim light spilling in from the street lamp outside. His expression was unreadable, but his eyes held everything we didn't dare say aloud. "You sure?" His voice was barely a whisper, but the weight of his question hit like thunder. I exhaled slowly, letting my hand find his. "Yes." And just like that, the space between us disappeared. Time stopped existing. The hours melted together, lost in the gravity pulling us toward each other. It wasn't rushed. It wasn't reckless. It was slow, deliberate, a night that refused to be forgotten. I had forgotten what it felt like to be seen, to be wanted, to have someone's full attention resting on me for so long. The outside world simply vanished. At some point, we tangled in the sheets, darkness wrapping around us like a secret neither of us was willing to let go. He traced lazy lines along my skin, his touch lingering even in the stillness. No frantic movements, no urgency, just a quiet, unspoken understanding. Neither of us wanted the night to end. And somehow it didn't. Stretched on. Long past the point when exhaustion should have claimed us. When silence came, we filled it with whispered thoughts, soft laughter, and glances that said more than words ever could. I don't think I've ever talked so much in one night, or felt this alive. I could feel the night slipping away, but I wasn't ready to let it go. We ended up reconnecting more than once. 4, 5, maybe 6 times. And honestly, I was surprised he even. Then suddenly, a noise beyond the door. A shift in weight. The quiet murmur of my wife turning in her sleep. We froze. My heart slammed against my chest. The weight of what we'd done sinking in like stone. Neither of us moved. The air between us snapped tight like a live wire. The house was still. Except for her breathing. Slow, steady, then a sigh. She shifted again and settled. We waited, and when the silence stretched, I finally felt safe to breathe again. But my pulse didn't slow. He exhaled beside me, rolling onto his side to look at me. "You okay?" I nodded, though my body was still buzzing with adrenaline. "Yeah." He studied my face for a long moment, like he wasn't sure if he believed me. Then, slowly, His fingers brushed against mine again. Softer this time. More careful. "You're thinking too much," he said, his voice barely above a breath. "I can't help it," I admitted, shifting under the sheets. He smirked, a flicker of teasing warmth in his eyes. "You didn't for a while." I felt my face flush, but I didn't deny it. Silence came again. But this time it wasn't heavy. It was warm, full of something I wasn't ready to name yet. Eventually, exhaustion crept in. Slowly, lulling me into a haze. His hand found mine under the sheets. Our fingers tangled lazily, and I let them stay there. Dawn was creeping through the curtains. When I stirred, a quiet warmth pressed against my back. A steady breath that wasn't mine. And for a moment, I let myself exist in that space. Not quite awake, not quite asleep, not quite ready to move. But reality has a way of pulling you back. I shifted, and felt him stir behind me. A soft sigh, a shift of weight. Neither of us said anything. When I finally turned to face him, the dim morning light revealed everything. What we'd done was reckless, irreversible. But when he reached out and brushed a strand of hair from my face, all I could think was how alive I felt. He leaned in. His lips grazed my temple. Then he pulled back. "I should go." I swallowed hard and nodded. "Yeah." But neither of us moved. Not yet. It wasn't regret I felt as he finally slipped out of bed, gathered his clothes, and moved as quietly as possible to avoid waking my wife. It was something else. Something I didn't want to let go of. He paused at the door, glanced back, his eyes unreadable. "Good night, Uncle James." It was morning, but I didn't correct him. "Good night," I whispered, and then he was gone. I lay there long after, staring at the ceiling, feeling the shape of him still beside me. The house was still. The world outside was waking, and I had never felt more awake. But the wildest part? The story didn't end there. The first thing I noticed was that the bed beside me was empty. The sheets still held the faint warmth of where he'd been. But he was gone. For a moment I didn't move. The memories rushed back in pieces. His voice in the dark, his touch, his eyes, the way he held me like I was something precious, like he didn't want to let go. It all pressed down on me, heavy, unreal. I sat up slowly. Morning light cut across the bed, drawing lines I couldn't ignore. My clothes were scattered, a quiet reminder of the night we'd shared. I reached for my robe, hands trembling slightly. The hallway was filled with soft morning light. And then, a faint noise from the kitchen. I stepped out, each footstep louder than the last in the stillness of the house. He was standing at the counter, back to me, drinking a glass of water, already dressed, his hair still tousled from sleep. Something clenched in my chest at the sight of him, at how familiar he already felt, at how impossible this all was, and yet, how inevitable. He turned, eyes meeting mine. Something flickered there. "Morning," he said. "Morning," I replied, stepping closer. We stood in silence. The tension still hung between us like smoke. "I was gonna leave before you woke up," he said. I wasn't sure how to respond. Was I relieved? Disappointed? "Why didn't you?" I asked quietly. He gave a small, dry laugh. "I don't know," he said. "Maybe I just wasn't ready to walk away." I swallowed. My mouth was dry. "We shouldn't talk about this." "I know," he said. Then after a pause, "But we will, won't we?" I had no answer. Before I could speak, a noise from the living room, footsteps, a groan. My wife. My stomach twisted. But he was already moving. He brushed past me, shoulder grazing mine on the way to the back door. "I'll see you later," he murmured, too quiet for anyone else to hear. And then he was gone. I stood frozen as my wife shuffled into the kitchen, still half asleep, rubbing her eyes. "Morning," she muttered, heading for the coffee maker. She didn't even look at me. Relief hit me like a wave, followed immediately by guilt. I turned to the sink, rinsing a glass that didn't need rinsing, trying to slow my thoughts, trying to breathe. But all I could think about was him. The way he looked at me before he left, like he was waiting for me to say something, to tell him what I wanted, what I felt, but I said nothing. And now, I don't know if I ever will.